Hey, John here. Here's lick of the day number 41. This is Danny Elfman-esque sweep arpeggios, and I call it that because it reminds me of some of his scores, and he tends to use chord progressions like these, even though it's not really a progression. It just goes between D minor and E major, and I'm also going to explain the theory behind that progression. So with that said, as usual, you can find the tab down in the description and also by clicking here on the screen. And I'm going to play it once slowly and then break it down. We start here on the 22nd fret of the high E string. No, we don't. We start here on the 15th fret of the D string. Alright, so first off, the theory behind this progression, and again, it's not really a progression, it's only two chords, but it's a D minor going straight into a E major chord. And technically that doesn't work in any minor key really, but what this is called, it's a secondary dominant chord. And it's called a secondary dominant because the primary dominant of any key would be the one built from the 5th degree, whether that's major or minor. So that means that our primary dominant of the key of D minor, if we actually make that into a proper dominant chord, so like D harmonic minor, would be an A major chord, right? Because D is 1, E is 2, F is 3, G is 4, and A is 5. And that goes for any key. So if you're in C major, C, D, E, F, G, G would be the primary dominant, for example. But a secondary dominant then is a chord that you can chuck in between two other chords in the same key. You can also use this to change keys, but the most common usage of secondary dominance is just putting it in between two chords in your normal progression. So in this case, let's say I wanted to get to the dominant chord of the key, so D minor to A7, the secondary dominant then would be the dominant of the chord I'm going to. So the 5 of A would be E, so that's why this works. So E is the dominant chord of the A, and then A is the primary dominant of the key of D, so that would lead me back to D minor. But in this case, we're not even going to the A chord, we're just going between these two over and over again, because that also works. So it's all about the sound at the end of the day, but that's the theory behind it. So don't get confused and be like, well, hang on, shouldn't the second chord of a minor key, shouldn't that be a diminished chord? So whenever you see a progression like this and you see a major chord or a dominant chord, like a 7th chord, that doesn't fit the key you're in, then check if that leads to another chord in the key that you're in, and the actual works as the 5th of that chord, then it's a secondary dominant. I might do a video on this eventually, but I'm sure if you Google secondary dominance or just search on YouTube for secondary dominance, you can find an explanation video right away. It's a really cool sound though, and the primary reason for it is to make it lead better to the next chord, so you add some extra tension to your chord progression. And in this case, it just sounds cool. A good thing about this lick is that you will practice and learn, if you don't know them already, the 3 different shapes for 3-string arpeggios for minor and for major. Because we're going to cover the 3 different shapes for D minor and the 3 different shapes for E major. But we're going to do that, basically pair them up. So we're going to go D minor, E major, D minor, E major, and work ourselves down to here. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. But first, we're going to start here on the F note, on the D string, which is the flat 3 of the key, and play 2 groups of 6 leading up to this D note before we start the actual arpeggios. So this is going to be 15, 17, 19 on the D and G string. Then we have 17, 18, 20 on B and E. And for this one, I simply alternate pick. So down, up, down, up. So if you do that, you should end up with a downstroke on this note, the D note, and that's where we start our first arpeggio. So in this case, we're going to have this shape, 22, 17, 18, 19. And the way we're going to pick this one is going to be a downstroke, pull off, upstroke, and then the actual sweep here is going to be down, 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 and then lead us into this 19th fret with an upstroke. So it's only this one that's going to start with a downstroke. But since we have a pull off, it doesn't really matter technically. But the rest of the ones, we're going to lead into it from a sweep. So it's going to be, the top note will always be an upstroke. So again, from the beginning. And as with all sweep picking, try to keep in mind that as you start to sweep, make sure that you fall from string to string. But the actual sweep in this one, if you do it the way that I do it, and the way that Yngwie does it, and I think Jeff Loomis, and all kind of good sweepers, is to play it, so you have the pull off here, and then treat the middle string here as just a normal alternate pick thing. And then when you hit the G string, you make sure to get a rest stroke. So, and the reason why I don't see it as up here is that when you come from here, you don't have any momentum. So this note is, you know, if you wanted to do 2 upstrokes, you could do that, but then you will have momentum, and it's way harder to change direction of a sweep when you already started getting going in one direction. So by treating this as a single upstroke, it's way easier to get the flow that you want. So the actual sweep in this one is here, right? Okay. So, and I talked about this in probably a couple of other videos here in this Lick of the Day series. But I think it's an important one, so if you haven't seen the ones before, I don't want you to miss anything. Anyway, we go from here into the E major arpeggio. And this shape should be familiar. It's like a D chord with that note up here. So we got 19, 16, 17, 16. And that leads into the next D minor shape, which is this one, which is actually like a D minor chord, 1 octave higher. So we got 17, 13, 15, 14. And we're going to play these just starting on the highest note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then change to the next shape. So I'm not even going to play the sequence, I'm just going to show you the shapes. So again, we have this, then we have this one, and the next E chord is this one. So we have 16, 12, 12, 13. And next D minor chord was this one. It's like the top of a normal bar chord. And this one you need to roll. Which is annoying at first, but if you work on it, like cutting the notes short, it's going to be way easier. And also make sure to learn the notes. So 13, 10, 10, 10. Start on 10. As a normal fretted note, and then you do this barring thing, because then you will feel where on the index finger the E string should be, right? So when you go down from this direction, you won't overshoot the actual lowest string of the arpeggio, and that's a very common thing. And really do take the time to learn this, because if you do that, you will get into the habit that it will actually feel wrong not to start it on the correct part of your finger, right? So, and also the more consistent you are when you play something, the easier it will be for your brain to get it. So don't wing it. Instead, make sure to know exactly where to place the string, and then be as consistent as you can. And if you've followed any of my stuff, you know that I'm a big proponent of practicing slowly. So take your time and don't do dumb shit, because that's gonna bite you in the butt eventually. So really take your time. So after this one, we have one more arpeggio, or 3-string arpeggio, and it's this one. It's an E chord. So E arpeggio, so we got 12, 7, 9, 9. And then we simply end up with this 5-string arpeggio, D minor. So we got 10, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 5. Picking wise here, it's just going to be up, pull off, and now you keep going with upstroke. So up, 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 down. Alright, as far as practicing this one, I would work on each pair, and what that means as well is not only doing, the first two. Instead, if you number all the arpeggios, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, then you can work between 1 and 2, like we did. But then you also work between 2 and 3. So and then 3 and 4. And then you work your way through it like that. And then, you can set yourself a target number of perfect repetitions. Maybe do 100. 100 is a good number. It's going to take you a while, but if you get 100 perfect repetitions of all these, and you do that over a few days, you're really going to see a big difference in your overall sweep technique. And as always, just focus on the accuracy, and then you will be very happy once the speed starts to show up as well, because then you will have the good type of speed where you can actually hear the notes you're playing instead of sitting there fooling yourself. All right, that's it for this one. If you have any questions, just post them below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next one.